I will be, there we go. Just say got it. I will be doing some talking today, but also relying on all of you to share your wisdom. And Mary Soderberg from the Friends of Pine Grove will be doing some presenting, and other staff members to save my voice to hopefully get me through to the end. With a small group, we might be able to expedite the agenda a little bit. So you have your day to explore other places. So let's get started. If you have the option of utilizing the chat, if you could put into the chat your name and the friends group or groups. I know some of you have multiple groups that you represent, and what you feel is the biggest accomplishment of your group. It does not have to be a consensus, but what did you feel was your biggest accomplishment as a group this year? And this is a great way, I think, for us to not only get to know one another, but also, you might be thinking about doing something and realizing that another group is already doing it. And that's a great person to connect to, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And staff, I would also invite you to put your information in the chat if you volunteer with any groups, or what you feel PPFF's biggest accomplishment was this year. So don't forget your biggest accomplishment as a group, as a friends group. And I'll take a minute to do it as well.
Give Carl and Ann a chance to try again. Here they come. Fingers crossed. Maybe.
Oh my gosh, I think we're here.
Yay! We knew you would persevere.
I did. Carl's somewhere.
So, Ann, what we're doing is we're putting into the chat box our name, the friends group that we represent, and what you felt your biggest accomplishment was this year. And if you have multiple people from the same friends group, you do not need to agree on it. We want to see everybody's perspective. And Carl, you cannot use retiring as your biggest accomplishment, because that's the friends group accomplishment.
It was a big one.
Yes, and so is your big adventure, which I can't wait to hear about at some point.
I don't know. On the iPad, it's huge, so I can't do. Any idea?
So, hopefully you are able to. I don't know. Not sure how to navigate it on the iPad.
I've never done it on the phone before. Our iPad wouldn't connect, so I don't see any menu option here on the iPhone. I'm sure it's there.
Excellent.
Usually there's 3 dots up in the far right-hand corner.
There usually are, but I'm only seeing myself, and if I move myself away, still no 3 dots. Yeah.
This is great. I'm reading all the things that you guys are doing.
Oh, wait. We may have figured this out.
There you go. Well, great. Continue to put them in, and I would say keep your eye on the chat. There's a lot of good information coming up there of what people have been able to do, and really showing the depth and breadth of what volunteer groups do. We have, because we're such a small group, we have some flexibility with our schedule. But we are going to start, because I know Tasha's very excited about sharing this with you. And many of you haven't met Tasha yet. You know Pam. Hello, Pam. Pam Metzger of the foundation. Tasha is new on staff. She started in April. She's our public engagement coordinator. And Pam and Tasha and I recently went to Georgia to participate in the National Association of State Park Foundation meeting. And one of the big focuses there was storytelling to advance your mission. And we felt that that was something very important to share with all of you, because you're doing it right now. You're sharing with others the story of your group. And stories are so important in building a following, engaging volunteers, and being able to raise money. So without further ado, we're going to turn it over to Tasha to talk about storytelling.
Yay. All right. So I got a little couple slides here. So yeah, we went to Georgia, and the big focus was on storytelling and how everybody has a story to tell, and just trying to idea generate and things that you capture and you can share, and making it known to the public. So why is it important? That's one of the biggest things that we talked about, and it helps foster a sense of community. Everybody loves to belong to a group, or people find, you guys, all of you have found a group that you're very passionate about. You're donating your time and energy to that. And by sharing it on social media and telling your story, or even in person, it doesn't just have to be social media, but you know, people get inspired by different things, and you passionately talking about something you love can spark interest in something. So, and you can come together and talk about it, or share a love of this case, your park or forest. Education is another great part. I know I was lucky enough this summer to I went to Pine Grove and did a history tour with Andre, and talked to even Chris, and Mary was there as well. And the education behind it, it's great. Like, and there was things that were talked about, and I'm thinking, you know, the public would enjoy knowing some of this stuff. So you can educate, whether it's on the history or the diversity in your park with wildlife and trees and whatnot, and different things. How do you get into a kayak? Maybe you can do like a little video or something like that, and somebody who's never done it can be like, oh, here's a resource, and I see it's at this park, so maybe I'll go try it at this park. Etiquette of things, that's another great one too. Marcy has worked with, we've built some different fact sheets and infographics that have helped people who might be new to things such as camping or trail etiquette, or how to read a trail blaze. Is there something in your park that might inspire doing that? And it can also, you know, encourage people to get out and explore. And preserving memories, I think that's one of the things for me personally that's taking this role has been, I found out over the summer that my great grandfather was actually a teacher with the CCC. And so here I am in a role, and I would have loved to have those stories just to kind of make the connection now, and they're not preserved anywhere. So by telling these stories, they're preserved for future generations. And then, all right, so how do you capture these? And it's really about thinking outside of the box. What are some things that you have and haven't tried? What are some other things that other people have tried? One of the things that they talked about in Georgia too was, what is something that's never been told about your park? Is there like a corner of the park that not many people know about? Could you highlight it in any capacity? Over the summer, we had a post that went out with a photo from one of the state parks, and I got a message from a lady that said, I have gone to this park multiple times a week, for many years. Where is this photo taken? So we reached out to the people who posted it, and she said, oh, it's in this corner on this trail, wherever. And I sent it back to her, and she's like, I had no idea that this trail existed. So making that post and getting that information out there, you get somebody who's been there before interested in a new way in your park. You get new people into your park or forest. What are some things that might be of interest to you that you know about, but you don't think about because you're so used to it? So those are some things that think about your park. And Forrest, and what can you come up with? Diverse. I think one of the first things when I started too, the things that you don't think about, the ham radio. Is there a group that meets in your park? Are there people that come and do a less popular activity, but still there nonetheless, that you might be able to highlight? Can you talk to your regular visitors? What can they do? Why are they there? What are they passionate about? Why can you share their story? And taking photos is another huge aspect of it. If you, even coming from a past career, we constantly have nonprofits come in, they want to put something together and they don't have photos. Even if it seems so minute in that moment, take the photo, keep the photo and use it. You have no idea when you can be able to utilize it. Yes, highlight it now, put it up now, the season's right, and highlight it. Tell its story. What's in the photo? Why did it inspire you? Why does it make you appreciate your park or forest? Highlight it. But you never know. You might be able to use it again in the future. So, and absolutely talk about your accomplishments. What did you do this year? We just did this, right? So does your audience know? Can you make a post can you interview your board or your volunteers? What do you feel is the greatest accomplishment this year? Ask them and write up a little report. Pat yourself on the back and the great things that you've done to help further the mission and what you're doing in your park. And also too, what else can you photograph? Can you photograph the change of the season? Can you make tell a story from the same spot multiple times throughout the year? What are some great things that you can highlight in your park? So just that, what has worked for everyone? What are some of the great things that you've posted on social media, told your stories? What has worked for you and your group?
Feel free to open your mics and share.
This is Debbie from White Clay Creek. I will say that, well, Ellen runs our social media. Having a good person is helpful. She's trying to find ways to increase the hits on social media. We find, getting people to post in Facebook, whatnot. But the thing is to find interesting things. And the photo, she's, this business of taking a photo somewhere unique and asking if people have seen it has been more popular. We find that helps with our links to the photo thing. Like you said, is very, seems to be working, though we're looking for more ways.
Yeah. And that's good. I mean, make a game out of it. It's where am I now? I know Marcy over the summer was doing that as well. When she would go out visiting friends groups, she'd stop somewhere, post a photo, and that's a great way to bring in interaction with people. Is they're guessing, where are you at? So
this is Mary from Pine Grove, and I'm going to be talking a little bit later with Marcy about volunteerism. And, I'm a big believer that volunteers want to be engaged in something that's fun and something they care about. So if we can have stories about our accomplishments, pictures of what volunteers have done, I mean, really simple stuff, I think that really makes a big difference in helping out with volunteer recruitment. So yeah, storytelling is critical, I believe.
To add on to what Mary said, Mary is my vice chair. I'm the chair of Friends of Pine Grove. And I took over the social media, just Facebook, a year ago, I guess. I've noticed
I burnt up and Andre took over.
Yeah, it is to be really successful with it's a huge amount of effort, no question. One of the things I realized is we have some anniversaries coming up. For example, huge volunteer effort to build a 50-foot hiking bridge, which Marcy and many, many other people helped with. The anniversary of that is in a few days in 2016. So I'm going to do a post on that. And, it's not a special anniversary. I think it'll be 7 years, but it's just a convenient, Park Radio, convenient thing to jump on. Sometimes you find yourself kind of struggling for topics And so having things like that kind of in your back pocket, or having photographs, as was already mentioned, Tasha was talking about, just get, you can have things like, gee, I'd really like to post today. I don't have anything going on in the park. Oh, I can run a picture, or it's a little bit of a cheat to reshare your own post from some time ago and just recycle something. And it's very easy. And maybe you can throw in one introductory sentence to make sure people understand that's not current, it's from 1 year ago, whatever like that. So.
Yeah, and Andre, I think one of the things with your sharing the anniversary of the bridge is it's a way to remind people that the Friends were responsible for that.
Right.
Because so often when we do a project, we have the celebration, but then it becomes part of the infrastructure of the park or the forest. And it's, people don't correlate it that there was a group of volunteers that made it happen.
Right. And, because of grants, we had to have a fairly text heavy metal sign that's affixed to this project, and other projects that we've had grants require. Not the sign I would choose. If it was up to me, I'd take spray paint and write on huge letters permanently, "The Friends built this," across the entire span of the bridge. But instead, you've got a small sign, which people don't often see. So,
Yeah, you have to bend over double, and it's like a paragraph of information had to be put on this little sign. It's like ridiculous.
Yeah, and people don't necessarily read, but please don't spray paint anything because the graffiti busters will come after you.
I kind of wanted to echo that idea of the stories of your volunteers, because that's one thing I really love to share every week in Fridays with Pam, is the pictures of your volunteers. And so many groups have so many wonderful activities that are taking place, but they never post the photos. So when I go out there trolling around trying to find things for Fridays, I know you were out there doing trail work or whatever, and there's no pictures of them. So just try and remember to shoot a snap when you're out there and post it, or send it to me directly. And I'll, if you don't have social media going, just send it to us and we'll get it up there.
Can I jump in with one thought about that? Do be careful with making sure everyone is happy to be on social media. And that can include certain park workers for various reasons that I'm not going to say in a recorded session, but just be sensitive to the idea that for personal or administrative reasons, sometimes people don't want to be included. And you just need to be thoughtful about that sometimes.
You need to ask permission, really, to take the photo. People are comfortable with that. We have a rule about that.
Yeah, that's a good.
Yeah. When we have the band, when we have our bands come and we're promoting the bands, we have them send us what they want posted.
Nice. I think one of the things too, if you're lucky enough to have reception as far as social media is concerned, don't hesitate to do a quick live either, because I know a lot of times if you go live, your heaviest followers will get a notification that, hey, this group just went live, and it'll draw people. I know I'm like, ooh, what are they saying? And I usually, if I'm online, I click on it pretty quick, and sometimes I stay, sometimes I don't, but it's the interaction. It might be the reminder to, hey, go back and do it. But even if not, though, a short little video is great too, and you can post it later if you've gotten, your permission from your people and they're comfortable with it. So, but I think too, going back to a little bit about like what Andre was saying too, there's a great connection in, if you can tag people, that's a great boost as well to get some interaction. So I know here in our role, like we tag our friends groups or partnerships with different people. So, or like if you have maybe something going on with the township and maybe they have a Facebook page or social media outlet, if you can make, the more connections you can make on that platform, the better your algorithm to get out there and see other things. I know too, like if you're in I call it the doom scroll, where you're just watching video after video, sometimes at the bottom, it'll say this video was liked by, and it might be somebody in your friends group. And so maybe that's why it's just being fed to you. So, so there's ways of getting out as well. But, and
I would also add hashtags.
Yes.
Yeah, depending on what platforms you're on, the hashtags are another way to connect with audiences. I'm always surprised how many new people I get when I, like, oh, campfire cooking, hashtag.
Yeah, definitely. It's certainly, that was one of the things too. I mean, that it's a whole topic in itself, but we really explored new AI and how to benefit, your posts and follower engagement as well. So there's something to be said in that, and how to get help in sharing your story. But as far as hashtags, like, you could be like, okay, well, this is kind of the hashtag and the topic. You ask AI and it can come back and say, hey, here's the most popular, whatever you want, 5, 10 hashtags, and it'll help. I used it the other day and picked up a hashtag I would have never, PA beauty or something, Pennsylvania beauty or something is a very popular hashtag. It kicked that back. I'm like, I would have never, thought to use it. So hashtags can do a lot for you too. So, but along with that, so I know if you get the social media tips, you would have seen yesterday too that we sent out that we're getting ready for Extra Give. So one of the things is, can you build promote? How can you build a video, or how can you build a post to help promote your park? What can you talk about? Pat yourself on the back. What's there? And how can you engage and show that? So that's one of my challenges to you is we're approaching the end of the year. A lot of times we're wrapping things up. And I know even though there's lots to do left in the year, you've had a great summer of things. What does it take to highlight yourself, put yourself out there on your post and pat yourself on the back for a year, for what you've done for the year? And in our case, we're doing Extra Give, and it would be great if you would allow us to share that for you and help use it as part of our Extra Give campaign and what our fantastic groups are doing. And I would love to see what's going on. What have you done? And I'd love to see you share them on your social medias and put them out there. And we can help boost that out there as well. And as always, if you ever have questions or want to bounce a few ideas, think through things, don't hesitate to reach out and ask. I've always got ideas. My brain doesn't stop. So, but is there any questions or challenges, anything else pertaining to your social media you might want to ask myself or others and how they're handling it?
Two things, Tasha. This is Mary.
Hello, Mary.
So if we want to send you some information, either pictures or a video or something for Extra Give, when should we get those to you by? And should it be to you or?
Within, I would say the next week and a half, so 7 to 10 days would be great. Extra Give is on November 17th. So, and I will accept it either way. If you would like to post it on your social media and tag us in it, that's great. I can certainly share it out from there and utilize it as well. Or you can send it directly to us and we can put it out indirectly as part of the Extra Give campaign.
The other question or point is, I remember when I first started doing the Facebook page for the Friends, I had no knowledge of Facebook. And Marcy had, I think it was an intern at the time, working at Parks and Forest Foundation. And she set up a great little training program on how to do Facebook, how to tag, just the different terms that are used in social media, but we as volunteers might not be that familiar with. Do we have anything like that to give us training?
It's on our website.
Is it?
Under the Friends resources, yes.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yep. If ever you can't find anything, first look under Friends resources or email one of us and we can point you to it. But whenever we get a question, we do try to address it with a fact sheet or a video or something that would benefit everyone, because we assume that if one person has the question, others have it as well. And I will say, Friends of Pine Grove does this, and I've seen it, and others may do it. You have your annual report for PPFF coming up. And I know some people look at it as, it's the annual report. I think the other way to look at it is, wow, here's a compilation of all of our accomplishments this year. How can we toot our horn? And I know that, that I've seen Pine Grove say, hey, we've had this many hours. Here's what the value was. These are our biggest accomplishments. So utilize the annual report as your tool for gathering information to share out to your members and donors and potential volunteers. Because as Mary said, as we get into talking about volunteers, people want to join something fun. People want to financially support a group that is successful. And people want to know that if they gave you money, that you've done something good with it. So the annual report is a great way for you to toot your horn. And then we collectively toot your horn. Hopefully you saw our most recent newsletter. We had a report inside that collectively looked at what all of us, friends groups and PPFF, accomplished. And we'll put it into the chat box in case you didn't see it. But it's very, very, very impressive of what we've all collectively have been able to do for Pennsylvania's park and forest system. So kudos to you all. Andre.
Can I ask a quick question or suggestion to Tasha, I guess? Unless there's some way of putting PDF images or other formats directly into Facebook, everything seems to need a JPG, a JPEG style.
Or a PNG.
Or which one?
A PNG.
PNG works also. But when things arrive that are PDF, you have to go through extra conniptions. And I'd really appreciate if anything that's being sent for friends chapters to put on social media, if you could include a JPEG version.
Sure.
Because otherwise we have to do it ourselves, and sometimes it's awkward or costly even. It's a fault of Facebook.
Yeah. No. I know that makes sense. I will absolutely be better about converting it before I send it. So
yeah, that's when I did the Facebook, PDFs were still a very easy thing to post, and then they changed.
Always changing.
Yeah.
I know it's like sometimes you want things to be just left alone for just a short amount of time. I know my credit union just launched something new 6 months ago, and they're already launching a whole new look, and I'm like, will you stop? Like, you barely get used to it and it changes. So, but
yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Tasha.
You're welcome.
And if you have questions that pop up throughout, you can put them in the chat and we can answer them. And there's some folks that are on here that are very successful on social media, so you can tap into them. And some people are being very quiet. So social media has a good side and a bad side. And some of you experienced the bad side this summer with scams. We had a number of friends groups that had scammers trolling their social media, trying to encourage people to register for events or register for a table through this link that they were providing, and even going as far as using the language is like, there are a lot of scams out there. So be sure to only use this link so that you are safe. So Jenna in our office, whose background is in IT and whose husband works in IT for Penn State Health, put together a multi-step paper that we have up on Facebook. And if you haven't seen this, we want to point it out to you to try to reduce the amount of scamming that you have. Now, Andre and I were joking, it's gonna reduce some of the bot activity on your Facebook page. So you may see some of your likes and follows, it will go down. So people from, countries that will never show up to volunteer at your park may no longer follow you. But Pam?
Well, since she's right, it was Jenna who very nicely put all this stuff together, and you can find it on the resources page under the facts and how-to sheets. And it's just a step-by-step and a highlighted link of where you can go whenever you post an event where these mostly happened in places where there was a vendor. You were looking for vendors to register to participate in your events. It happened at Prince Gallitzin. I think it happened Pine Grove. And was there one other one, Marcy, that they were having the same problem? So this is
It happened at Kings Gap, and it wasn't just vendors at Kings Gap. The other one that they got was, we're going to be having a live feed, and you can buy into that feed by clicking here, kind of thing.
Wow.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. I was all excited about that when I saw that. I was like, I had no idea we were having a live feed, and they were like, no, don't click it. I'm like, okay, great, because I'm already standing up. I was looking around to see who the person was doing the live feed.
Amazing.
For those of you who haven't experienced it, so a person would come on saying they are the person to contact if you want to be a vendor. So you submit your fees to that person. It's all about money that they were looking for. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So this
somehow Pine Grove went through a text message situation. So they had gotten the information and somehow
no, it wasn't Pine Grove. It was
I'm sorry,
Prince Gallitzin.
Yeah. So they had found the text.
It was Messenger, Pam. What they were doing is anybody that posted comments on your event page, they were messaging them saying, hey, we do have spaces left, and you need to go through this. So that's the other thing that isn't included in this is you also need to monitor. You can either turn off all the ability, if you have an events page, turn off the ability for people to comment on it, or really monitor your page. Because they were using Messenger, which Jenna says is the worst thing you can do, especially if you're sharing anything personal, because it is so readily hacked.
Use it. So there you go. Words of wisdom. So here's the different countries that you can look for that apparently are hotbeds of spamming. And you just restrict any kind of activity from those countries. And hopefully that will help a little bit. As we say, this is hopefully to slow things down, not necessarily stop it. We've been the subject here at PPFF with some scams that started last fall. Unbeknownst to me, I monitor the database for donations, and there was a young man in Greensburg who was giving us $5 every couple of weeks. And, we went through the usual acknowledgement and tried to call him and no response. We're thinking, well, what a nice thing. It's from Greensburg. Then we had one from Texas that started to happen. And for whatever reason, it popped into my head that, wait a minute, this is not right. And it turns out that our donation page had been attacked by bots, and they were using our website as a clearinghouse for checking stolen credit cards. So it's been a nightmare to try and stop it, but we've got it. If you notice, when you go on our website now, our donation page looks very different. And for a lot of you, we've started to use the new updated, supposedly more secure donation page, so it doesn't happen. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and you wish people would find something better to do with their time.
Yeah. Well, we also had somebody posing as us and making calls to people asking for money, and we had to do at all points out that we never call people and ask for money. So just be cognizant of, what you're posting, monitoring your posts. And if you notice anything odd, react to it.
Faster than I
reach out
did
to us.
Jeremy in Greensburg. React quicker than I did. What a nice young man.
Because the other side of that is we've had to reimburse all these people whose credit cards were stolen, so it's costing us money and time. There is the dark side of social media.
I have a question. That nice document you showed, can you share that with us?
You want me to put the link in the chat box, Pam?
Yes, thank you for the Facebook. I'm sure, I'm
Yes.
hoping our Facebook people have that, but just in case, I better make make sure they.
There's the link that I'll put up is the link to our Friends Resources page, and just about
good.
everything that
That's
I refer
perfect.
to today will be coming from that resources page.
Cool.
It's packed full of stuff. So
Right.
So any other thoughts or questions as it relates to social media and telling your stories? And again, you just did a great job of telling the stories in the chat box. And I do encourage you to read what people wrote, because there's a lot of good things going on, and you might get inspired to try something new, or you might get inspired to reach out to somebody and say, hey, how'd that go for you? And, you have that flexibility in the chat box to reach out to people as individuals, just clicking on to, and it'll give you a drop down menu, and you can communicate directly with the other person. One of the reasons I don't like Teams, you can't have sidebar conversations.
One point I'll make that I think is why, and I'm being very immodest here, we hit 10,000 followers. How many of those are bots? I don't know. But I think that much of it is real, and it's not that I was pushing advertising or paying Facebook for that. There's algorithms going on that promote your Facebook page and show it in various feeds as you might be interested in this. And I don't know the details. If anyone outside of Facebook does, it seems as though the more you post, the more comments you get, the more activity, the algorithm interprets success as needing more success. So the rich get richer, and I guess the poor don't get any richer. And I think there was an inflection point that happened a few months ago. It just seemed to me where all of a sudden we were just having more traffic. And again, I some of it could be bots, but I don't think necessarily. And I think what happens is if you post regularly, we do 1 to maybe 2 a day. It's very rare that I skip a day. And I try to have meaningful content, but if you don't post on your social media for several weeks, the algorithms don't like it, but also just humans don't like it either. It doesn't look good when you check on something and there hasn't been anything in quite a while. It feels like an empty home and you want to move on. So I think that is something to watch out for, is being active and appearing busy. And maybe in the winter there's less to say, so you put some of the pretty pictures as we were talking about, whatever it may be.
And several of you do really nice newsletters, and I know that you put them up in their entirety, but you can also take those newsletters up and break them in by stories, and extend it, because you never know what's going to get pushed into somebody's feed. So the whole newsletter might not get pushed, but maybe a story from the newsletter will get pushed. And it is okay to repurpose content, and content can be links that you share from the media. You can become the authority on your park or your forest by sharing factual information about it that you draw from news stories, etc.
Couple comments on Facebook and stuff. So yeah, I felt it was odd that I was getting people liking my Facebook for friends of and from like South America, and it felt really odd saying, no, you're not allowed to follow us or like us or anything. But okay, so you're saying that it's okay to block other countries that have, so okay, that's good. And then if there's nothing, I've been trying to promote, like if my EE is going somewhere and she's going to be a part of something where there's no friends groups and we don't have any activities for the weekend, I'll push the events that are real close to us, that where my EE is going, and say, hey, go over here and, you might like this. I've observed, another board member made a comment to me that like Beltsville, they share our posts. They're way off east, but they share our posts about, if we're having events, or they like something that our EE posts on the Black with Shannon page, they'll post that stuff. And so I don't see, like, if you have nothing going on in your park and there's a park pretty close to yours, I don't see a reason why you can't push that. I mean, thoughts?
Other friends?
I totally agree. I mean, we've done posts we've got several parks near us, and we post their information.
Yeah, and to that point, I mean, even like this, I think it was either to this morning or yesterday, DCNR posted about Sunday hunting. It's something easy and quick that you can post, and like Andre said, it keeps getting stuff out there and just keeps people involved. Just posts like that from DCNR, from the Game Commission, Fish and Boat.
Right.
Or these parks, so it's all relevant.
Yes. If somebody likes your park, they're probably interested in parks in general or being in the outdoors. So you're helping them. And, there's a post you could share right now, because on Monday, the new Elk Creek State Park is having their public meeting, and they need park enthusiasts to be at that meeting to weigh in on the plan that they're going to share. It's kind of hard if you're coming from Presque Isle to get down there to Landenberg, but, share that out, because there might be another way for people to comment on it. But great. This is all very good stuff. Thank you. And Jonathan, to your question, the countries that were highlighted are ones that Jenna drew from the Department of State as where the most scams originate. And that will continue to change, and we'll update that. But, we have the Exploring Pennsylvania's Parks and Forests page. It's a group page, and we reject people on a regular basis. We reject, you can tell sometimes somebody has just sort of a very empty Facebook page, and we don't let them in. And they have to go through a series of questions too. So it is okay. And it's also okay if somebody posts, sometimes a little bit of controversy brings dialogue, but if somebody's posting something really bad on your page, you can hide it. That is perfectly all right. Or if somebody keeps trolling you, you can block them too. You're volunteers. You don't need to be trolled by somebody. That's just not right.
One thing I wanted to add, Andre had mentioned about receiving PDFs that you can't post on Facebook. I just do a little quickie screenshot on my iPhone to change it into that image. And that's how I add a lot of my pieces that I receive as PDFs, because that doesn't cost you a thing.
Agreed. And I do that sometimes, but sometimes the quality suffers. Maybe it's because I have an ancient iPhone, but the fine text in particular sometimes gets kind of hard to read. So you're absolutely right. That's a useful technique, especially for just general pictures, but for things with a lot of detail, it doesn't always serve the purpose.
It does not, and editing doesn't always help.
Yeah, and we can convert them, and we have the software to do that. So that's not a problem. So thank you for pointing that out, and thank you for that tip, Anne. Good tip. I love the screenshot function, except when I accidentally do it to my phone. Hey, well, if there's no more questions as it relates to storytelling, we wanted to start with that, because a question that you always put out, all across the board, comes up regularly, is how do we recruit volunteers? It seems to be a constant struggle, whether it's volunteers to serve just in general, or volunteers that are, a part of your board members. So we wanted to talk about that. So I'm going to do this in 3 parts. Mary's going to talk a little bit about, how they're doing volunteerism at Pine Grove. We're then going to talk about hosting a community open house. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the Old Growth Forest Network, which may seem unrelated, but it is related. So Mary, I'm going to stop talking, go get some hot tea, and then I'll be right back.
All right. Thank you, Marcy. Yeah, as Marcy said, I'm kind of pinch hitting this morning to give her a break while she is recovering from COVID. I was really pleased to hear Tasha talking about storytelling, because as I said, I believe the way to bring volunteers in is to tell your story, to let people know that you've got some fun things going on. You're having an impact on the park, and you're making a difference. And we just need to let people know that. So what I'm going to do this morning is just talk about the Friends of Pine Grove Furnace State Park. And it could be none of this is new to you, especially for Andre, it will not be new. But I don't know. I know that every park and every friends group is different. And I don't know how we all do it and if we have a lot of similarities or not. So I just thought I would talk about our friends group and how we do it, and then learn from you about how you do it and what has worked for you. So as a friends group, we've been around for a while, not as old as some groups, but we've been around for a while, since 2010. We have 8 board members. We normally get together for 4 board meetings a year. We'll have other meetings where if we're focused on getting ready for Fall Fest, Andre and I will meet with the park staff, or if there's the trail race that we're hosting, there'll be smaller groups that get together. Most of our communications are by email. And when I say most of our communications, I'm really referring to the fact of how we communicate with staff, how we communicate with our other board members. Our entire board is very comfortable with email, and how we communicate with our volunteers. I know some groups have kind of an older membership for their board. Our chair, Andre, and I are both retired, but the other 6 work full time, which is wonderful. They bring different insight, but that also limits their time. So, there's pluses and minuses there. Our entire board has been on the board a pretty long time, and we're just at the point now of discussing about bringing in some fresh blood and energy to our board. So, we're going through the same thing that all of you are going through. Okay, all right. We have some very basic volunteer opportunities that really don't change from year to year. I mean, there'll be other things that happen, and there'll be other events like we're already beginning to think of the first day hike, and that's really not much of a volunteer effort. That's just us showing up with some hot cider and homemade cookies, and a couple of our members leading a hike. So I'm not even including that kind of an event. So we have regular volunteer days like Earth Days, National Public Lands Day, Woodsy Owl Day. And for the most part, I would refer to these as really being park led. But we work very closely with our park staff, and Andre will sit down on a monthly basis with our park educator, mapping out what are the different events for the month. And he actually does a number of the events, the history events. So we work closely with them, and for the volunteer days, we'll shake the trees to get our volunteers to come out, and we'll provide a lunch for all the volunteers. So it's really a group effort. We have a firewood crew that's a small group of volunteers that we get together usually on Mondays in the winter, and it's a small crew. Everybody gets out of their vehicles and they're ready to work, and they just roll. They know what they need to do, and it's a bunch of self-starters. Very easy group to manage. We then have the history tours and presentations, and I'm putting this in here because although Andre is clearly the lead, it is such an important part of our park. The fact that we have a volunteer who understands and knows the local history and has very close connections to the Cumberland County Historical Society. It's very unique that we have that kind of a connection. And Andre works very closely with the park staff to make certain that there's a variety of history programming. Tasha mentioned that she'd gone on a kayak tour with Andre, and that was all about the history of Laurel Lake. But he also does tours of the Ironmaster's Mansion, tours of the different buildings in the park, and it's really an important asset, even though it's really one volunteer doing it all. Trail maintenance, that's really scheduled as needed, but as Friends volunteers, we really do take the lead on that. And then special fundraising events, Fall Furnace Fest that Andre and I both talked about in the chat box as being our big accomplishment this year, and a trail race, which those are 2 events where it's all hands on deck. When I say all hands on deck, it's all of our board members, and it's a crew of volunteers that are really experienced for these 2 events that we bring in just for these events. Okay, next one. So recruiting volunteers, and this goes back to telling your story. It's all about communication. We have a membership brochure that we update every year, and in that brochure, it lists the different events, volunteer events that we have. And, you know, we give people an opportunity to sign up to be a volunteer right then and there. But our secretary then takes those memberships that come in on an annual basis and has created a file of email contacts for both our members, but not just members, interested volunteers. And she uses that to reach out to people on a routine basis. We have 2 email addresses that we use. And I think this is very important so that our volunteers are not getting communications from Andre somebody or Mary somebody or Diane somebody. We have a PGF volunteers at Gmail that Diane, our secretary and who coordinates our volunteer effort, she uses specifically to communicate with volunteers. And then we have the Pine Grove Friends at gmail.com, which is more of a generic email address we use for friends communications. We have a website, and once again, we have information about our different events on that website. And as Andre was saying, we have a very active Facebook page. It's pretty amazing how active it is. And that is just an amazing way to let the general public know what's happening. But when we're talking about a volunteer day, like National Public Lands Day, we'll promote that and we'll be asking for volunteers on our Facebook page. We also have a quarterly newsletter, and once again, it's telling our story, but it's also reminding people they can volunteer, and here's the email address to volunteer. Our secretary, Diane, she does routine email communications with volunteers and members about events and volunteer opportunities. So when the park does their monthly program, she will send it out to our contact list as well. And in her cover email, she'll say, you know, please note, Earth Day is coming up in April. If you're interested in volunteering, you know, please either respond to Diane or sign up on the conservation page at DCNR. So we try to keep reaching out to people in different ways, I should say. So the day, you know, it's all different in how we manage different things. The volunteer days, it's really the park and the friends reaching out to contact lists. And as I mentioned, you know, we'll provide lunch, but we sit down with the park to figure out what are the projects, what needs to be done, and how many volunteers do we expect. And I'll be the first one to admit that some volunteer days are kind of lean, and that's okay. If people show up, they're enthusiastic, and we usually accomplish quite a bit, even if only a few volunteers show up. And then other days, we'll have some church group that shows up, and we'll have 60 people. So we never know who's going to show up, and that's totally fine. The firewood crew is a smaller crew that's just, you know, we know who they are, and they know what they need to do. So that's very easy. And the trail maintenance, Andre normally will send out an email saying, you know, we've got, you know, a lot of muddy areas that we've got to address, or trees have come down, we've got a lot of branches to clear, whatever the issue might be. And that depends on the weather and the state of the trails. The special events, and Pam, you just flipped to slide 1. Can we go back to slide 4? Can I do that?
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Something popped into my head and I wanted to check on it. And of course, messed you up.
Okay.
Are we there?
Yep.
Okay.
The special events are pretty huge. Our trail race is really just a half day, but the prep work required, the kinds of volunteers that are required, we need to have volunteers who can handle the registration, can handle checkpoints, can handle road crossings. I mean, we have a policewoman from Harrisburg who comes in to help with the crossing for the road. So we have a very specialized group of volunteers that have been doing it for years, literally years, and we reach out to them every year. And the same with Fall Fest. Fall Fest is a 2-day festival, but most of the activity happens the Friday before the weekend and then the Monday afterwards. And this year we had about 780 hours of volunteer time over that 4-day period. And Diane, our board secretary, is the one who schedules all of that and makes it all work. But once again, we're very fortunate. The people who volunteer for these special events, we may never see them at any other time of the year, but they all show up for these events, and we're very dependent on these volunteers. We also do some, but it's limited, coordination with other groups. We've had a couple of Boy Scouts, or Eagle Scouts, I should say, who have worked with the park to identify a project, and we have provided either some financial support, or recently, a couple of years ago, I guess it was, they rehabbed a small log cabin in the park. And so actually some of our board members actually volunteered for that as well. So in addition to providing them financial assistance, we were volunteering. We've got the Master Gardeners. They come in for Fall Fest every year, and they do crafts with the kids. And then we did have a good relationship with forestry students for cutting firewood. And then the pandemic hit, and the 2 professors who coordinated that, they moved on to other things. So, it's hit and miss. Every once in a while something happens and we're able to make it work. This year at Fall Fest, we had the Girl Scouts, the regional Girl Scouts office reached out, and they had a booth. And I'm hoping that has opened the door for an ongoing relationship with Girl Scouts going forward, but we'll see. And then the big elephant in the room is all the work that the board does. And it's a lot of work. And, it's, everything, communicating with the park staff, the treasurer's responsibilities, the managing our merchandise, the Facebook, trail work, firewood hauling, the Fall Fest, trail race preparation, history presentations. It goes on. And Andre kind of refers to it as, it's kind of like having a small business. Sometimes it feels like it's a big business because there are so many moving parts. And I'm going to be the first one to say there are some days where we're stretched very thin. We have begun to talk about, bringing on some fresh blood for our board, people with really strong skill sets. And once again, something has fallen into our lap. Two gentlemen separately approached us about being on the board, and they each have just an amazing skill set that can really help us out going forward. So, so that's something that, time management for us, I don't know. It's just, there's a lot of work involved in managing everything that's going on in the park. And it's a lot of fun. It's very fulfilling. We love Fall Fest. I was bone dead after Fall Fest, but the sense of pride was totally amazing. Very, very amazing. Anyway, so that's what we're all about in a nutshell. And I suspect that most of you are doing the similar kinds of things a little bit differently. And I'd appreciate hearing what sorts of things have worked for you as far as recruiting new volunteers and any ideas you might have.
You can unmute yourself and share things that have worked for you, or if you have a question of Mary or Andre, since they're both from the same chapter, feel free to unmute yourself, or if you're feeling shy, you can put it in the chat box.
We usually reach out a lot to the local universities, Shippensburg, Messiah, Dickinson, and we used to have a lot of groups would come in and help out from a volunteer standpoint there. And especially for our big Garden Harvest Day, which is similar to the Furnace Fest, we used to get a lot of volunteers from that. And for whatever reason, it just died off this past year. We lost all of them, and we didn't have a single person come in from any of the universities this year. And I can't explain why. The one thing I have noticed is that over the last couple of years, I'm sorry, my grandfather clocks. I don't hear it, but I know you guys hear it. I think it's partially due to COVID. There's so many things going on out there that if you don't get in touch with people at least 4 to 5 months in advance to get things on the schedule, you're not going to have them at the last second. And a lot of people too, from an event planning standpoint that we've seen, is they won't sign up until 3 or 4 days before an event happens because they want to keep all their options open. And they don't realize that as an event planner, that becomes extremely difficult for us because now we're already past our window to have ordered everything that we need. So we end up short on things too. So any ideas anybody has on that would be extremely helpful.
That's a good point. It really is important to get your event on people's calendars early on. I mean, it used to be I was more concerned about the vendors, but the nonprofits, we have a number of different nonprofits who participate in Fall Fest, either by providing demonstrations or information, or like the Master Gardeners, doing crafts with the kids. And it is, I mean, we've got to reach out to them actually, we reach out to them on the last day of Fall Fest. We go around and give them the information on when Fall Fest will be next year so that they can put it on their calendar. And the applications from vendors and nonprofits are already rolling in for next year. I mean, Andre goes in and checks the mail every day, and it seems like every couple of days there's a stack of them. So it's very important to get on people's schedules. And with regards to the universities, people change. It's hard to keep up to date with who's the right person to be in touch with.
Yeah, and it's really about your relationship with the professor or the academic advisor.
Yeah.
Andre.
And I'll just jump in that in terms of the universities and sometimes even high schools, because of the history activities that I lead here, we do have pretty good connections with certain schools. And so that's one angle. It hasn't always translated to volunteerism, but it doesn't hurt. And I think there are some students who are there just because they're on a class trip who recognize that, gee, there's more to it than that. So that's just, doing special activities. Astronomy is another thing that we're starting to increase programming, which is something that DCNR at a higher level has been pushing educators to do. Those are ways to get people more aware of your friends group existing, and maybe they came for one reason, and then perhaps you'll grab some volunteers. I am very interested that Scott at Kings Gap is seeing things fall off, and I wonder also what that's all about.
And I know, and I would say my husband is the chair of the Cumberland Valley Appalachian Trail Club, and their relationship with universities isn't with programs like, science or, whatever. They work with sports teams because a lot of the sports teams do volunteer service. So the lacrosse team will come out and do trail building, or, the soccer team will come out and do X, Y, and Z. So, think outside the box. There are a lot of students that are looking for volunteer opportunities, or coaches that are looking for life building opportunities for their athletes. And Mary,
I teach at a high school, and I see that I've seen that drop off since COVID as well, from even the amount of students in my environmental club who often do then volunteer at Nolde in some of our activities. This year, I've seen an increase again, which is nice. So I think at the high school level anyway, I think the kids got used to like just laying on their couch and doing everything behind a video and kind of got lazy. And so luckily my environmental group seems to be really active again. By the way, if you hear snoring, that's the dog I had to take out to go poo. He's now already asleep. Yeah, so I'm hoping that's a good sign for volunteerism, because I do get them to come out and help. And finding the point person at a high school is also important, because principals are so busy that they might, not respond to your email right away or be able to pass that on. Another thing with activities, we're lucky we have a trail run as well, but we were approached by the local race group, the Pagoda Pacers, that wanted to do the trail run, and then said, hey, we'll donate most of the proceeds to you. So that was like a huge win-win, where and then two of their members became members of our friends group and have become very active. So it just made this great connection that they loved running in the park and wanted to give back. And usually that race gives us about $2,000 a year that we wouldn't ordinarily have. And we're a little bit different because we're an environmental center. We don't have the camping. We don't have space for like huge events, which actually is kind of a blessing in disguise for me, because teaching full time and being really involved in other environmental groups, I wouldn't have a chance. I wouldn't have the time to put all this together. But we do, some very cool educational activities. Helped build an play area for kids. Currently, we raised enough money, about $10,000, to help rebuild a bank barn, a wall that was crumbling. So, we're holding our own, but we are kind of a different entity in that we are more of like a day center, instead of having, the whole huge camping and having a big lake or something of that nature. So
great. Thank you, Jen. Jonathan, did I see your microphone go open?
Yeah, I was going to comment. So, Mary, I think the university you were talking about was Mont Alto and Dr. Brantley. And I think you've heard this before, but the reason I'm sitting here is because my daughter volunteered to cut firewood at your place, and she told me about friends groups. So I had never heard of a friends group before that interaction.
That is so cool. Thank you.
So yeah, when Dr. Brantley left, it was a big that was a big hurt. We're getting our feet wet up here at University Park campus, reaching out to different groups to try to get them to show up at our volunteer events, and it's working a little bit. And we're dealing with things like there's little squares that you can scan with the the little QR codes and put them on posters and get people to go out to the Gmails and then get interest that way, and that seems to help. And outreach, I've been trying to do more outreach activities in the county, so that people know what we're about. So that's been helping. But yeah, most of I haven't mildly heard this mentioned, but like REE came to us the other day, and she's like, Jonathan, I need the budget for 2025 passed, because the speakers I want for the park are already available, and if I don't buy them soon, like, we're not going to get them. And I was like, oh, I should probably share this. But yeah, I don't know if you guys run into that or not, but yeah.
Great. So yeah, QR codes is good. Any way that people can get to you. The COVID, that was a plus out of COVID. People became very accustomed to using a QR code. We do have a fact sheet on our website, an infographic of the health benefits of volunteering, and one of the biggest ones is helping to combat loneliness, which is becoming a pandemic in and of itself. Mary, you mentioned Girl Scouts. Secretary Dunn and I have a meeting with the head of Girl Scouts in January. because Girl Scouts as an entity across the nation has a goal that relates to state parks, and they have a goal of planting 5 million trees, and they're doing saplings or seedlings, but they are looking for opportunities to get involved and to plant seedling trees. So we're going to dive in and learn a little bit more about that, and we'll be communicating back out because those are potential partners. And always remember too that, we often think about the Eagle Scouts, but there are Girl Scout Gold Awards for, that's our equivalent. Tasha is a gold person.
So am I.
There we go, Rosemary.
I have a gold award, and I've gotten no recognition for it in my lifetime.
Well, we can have applause right now. Yay, Rosemary and Tasha.
Everyone talks about the Eagle Scout Award, and our group never reaches out to Girl Scouts.
And I always encourage. I had a Girl Scout troop for 12 years, and they were really hard workers, and they loved being in the outdoors. And I think you're missing an opportunity, and it is part of the mission of Girl Scouts is state parks in particular. So, and state forests, I think you can slide in there too.
I do have a question. You mentioned QR codes. So do you have this set up through your Google site, like your Google, or how are the QR codes set up? I mean,
Pam.
Leave them.
Yeah, because I'd like to, so I mean, we have a system. Penn State has this system called Org Central. And basically, you have people just sign up, and it automatically generates a list of everyone who's signed up. And I believe there's a way to do that with Google. I haven't. So none of our Google stuff is set up. I took over as secretary, and I'm hoping to get a lot of these things set up for our group with to set up people who volunteer, just sign into a list.
Yeah, well, they can do that through the events page. Go ahead, Pam.
I haven't used Google to accomplish a QR code, but if you have any exposure to our Neon website that manages all your donations and things, it's, these gigantic URLs. So I turn them into Bitly's, and then Bitly gives you the opportunity to download a QR code right there with your shortened URL. So if you do something like Greenwood Furnace Friends events, turn that into a Bitly, it'll generate the QR code for you and associate it with that URL. And Bitly's free. So
we can already do that through you.
You can do it yourself. Bitly is free. So you can go on to Bitly, create a shortened URL, and it'll generate a QR code. There's a lot of websites out there to do a QR code for free, but they don't necessarily track where the links are coming from.
I mean, I know there's a way to set up a Google sign up thing that you
probably.
Yeah. So Rosemary, I haven't. So I used, when the other group I volunteered with when I was in Pittsburgh, I had a lot of things set up through Google. Everything was on Google Drive. And when I left as secretary, I just said, "Here you go. Here are the passwords. It's all here." And it was a great feeling.
I'm gonna let you lead a seminar on using the Google.
You know what? I've forgotten a lot. I haven't touched it in 4 years.
So, but Rosemary, if you're having an event and you have volunteers coming in, you can have them sign up on our events page. They can sign up. And one of the things that's nice is we actually can build in a liability waiver that they can, when they sign in, they're also signing the liability waiver, which is really something we're going to be leaning more towards. Is we're going to talk about this later, but anybody that's coming out to volunteer with you needs to do either if it's a group, you get a group sign in, and then you give that to your park manager or district forester. But if they're a regular volunteer, they need to be part of the conservation volunteer program. And we also need to have them sign a liability waiver.
Yeah, I'm asking this because I'm trying to get the outing club of Penn State to volunteer regularly. They've been coming to our spring spruce up 2 or 3 years now. And they also help do some trail maintenance. And I'd like to get them, they're a large group, and I'd like to get them volunteering more. And I think it would help if we refer them to your sign up page, your volunteer sign up page, and they could just sign up directly.
We can talk about it offline, how we can help you. Andre.
Can I jump in? First of all, I just want to make clear to everybody that the QR code is a completely separate issue from these other complicated things about getting people signed up online. QR codes are trivial, as Pam hinted. There's lots and lots. I use a free one on the web called QR Code Generator. It's just when I search how do I make QR codes, that's always the first hit on my Google page. And it's really trivial to just throw in any website you want. It'll make the code. Best practice is always to have, and then you cut and paste that into whatever document or website or whatever you're doing. Best practice is always to have at least the start of that directly underneath the QR code so that people know what they're clicking on. And I always like triple check using my phone before I send out a document to make sure the QR code does what I think it's doing. But that could be to anything, just to your website, to a sign-up page, whatever. So that's separate from the problem you're talking about of getting people signed up. I will say that for a lot of events where it's a joint activity between our friends group and the state park, the DCNR calendar sign up is something that our environmental educator sets up. And so let's say I'm leading a kayak program in conjunction with the park. It's on their calendar and, there's 15 spots. They handle that for me. And it just is done internally through the DCNR thing. I personally find Google Documents not to be very friendly, and not all platforms work well with it. And I know that for state employees, sometimes some of these other things don't always work well because of barriers in the system. So
the state employees cannot access Google. That is an issue. Right. But everyone's using Gmail. But our biggest challenge is we need more volunteers. We absolutely do not have the capacity we need to run, to do more than what we're doing.
Right. So Pam's going to share some additional resources. Mary, first of all, I want to thank you. Those were some really good tips and ideas. Hopefully, everybody got some tidbit they can take away and apply. And I'm sure Mary is fine with us putting up her PowerPoint onto the resources page of the website.
I don't know if I would bother with that. So Marcy gave me a text message late last night, said, Mary,
I might not be able to talk.
This is what popped into my head while Mary was talking. The whole idea of recruiting volunteers is to make sure that people know you're out there and get to you in any different way they possibly can. Most of you are probably familiar with the opportunity you have to put on your website a link to donate or join your group through our website. And I think the Friends of Pinchot do a very nice job of using that to every advantage. I mean, here they have their different levels and, the standard stuff that's on every one of your pages. But down at the bottom, they also have volunteer options and a link to a survey that they can have people fill out. And they can click a button right here on this page that says, I'm interested in volunteering. So that when Beth runs her report that you can all run from your donations, she also gets those fields in her report and knows that there might be somebody out there who's interested in volunteering. So anybody who would like to activate that at any time, let me know and I can add that to your page. It's, just if I don't know if I can link to the survey directly and have it follow me, but it is.
Yeah, it's following you.
Is it following? Good.
Yeah, it's following.
So, their form. And
so there's that option exists for you, that you can have that on your page where people can. So excellent.
Just send me a form and let me know you want it to happen and it will happen. So the other things that we have on the website, and we're going to go to the Friends Resources page.
Yeah, I'm taking notes, and I'm thinking we have nothing set up as far as our group.
Yes, you
definitely go to your page and take a peek.
you definitely have a donation page.
We do. Well, yeah, you did set that up. So yeah. I guess I have to get into all of that. I'm pretty sure no one's gotten into any of these things.
Yeah,
on our board.
I can't guarantee that, but there is the page there, and I believe it's linked on your Facebook page, but I wouldn't swear to it. So anyway.
Yeah, I'll need to check with Paul, and I think I'm gonna have to get access from Paul to our Facebook. Right now, he's the only one with that, like, working on the Facebook. So it would be a good idea to have more than one person working on the Facebook page.
I actually have access to.
Yeah, he did get the password and such to you. I mean, I don't know. I got to do something. I don't have Facebook.
Rosemary, can we take this as a sidebar so that we could share these things? Thank you.
Sure.
So one of the drop downs is volunteer management, and it's got suggested hour trackers and all these wonderful forms. A few years ago, we had a grant from the Bayer Center for Nonprofit Management at Robert Morris in Pittsburgh, and they gave us some PowerPoints and interesting information on ideas for volunteer recruitment. This Working with Volunteers link is a nice little document from our friends in the Parks and Forests with what they consider to be the best practices.
We surveyed park and forest managers.
Just some ideas. Pretty common sense ideas in most cases. I close that.
And Pam, we used to have the leadership.
Yes, I'm sorry that I'm not, as adept at sharing and moving around as I could be. My brain is not functioning this morning, so you'll just have to bear with me. Still in flu fog. Another one that's on here is leadership programs across the Commonwealth.
And as that comes up, you see just above it is a sample volunteer event recruitment email, courtesy of the Friends of Michaud, which sends out regular volunteer emails.
Why it's not coming up is anybody's guess.
It's helped us because we've grown a lot over the last year. I think we were around 110 last year as far as membership, and we're close to 200 now.
Nice. So if that link were to work, which it seems that it's not working right now, we had done a number of years ago, we looked at all of the leadership programs across Pennsylvania, like Leadership Harrisburg, Leadership Cumberland. These are local business people that are going through leadership training, and oftentimes the byproduct of that is that they need to do volunteer service or serve on a nonprofit board. So, building a relationship with them, like I know for folks here in Central Pennsylvania, Leadership Harrisburg area has a day where people can go in and talk to people that have participated in the program and talk about the volunteer and board member opportunities that they have. And I speak to them once every class, and I talk about getting out and volunteering with friends groups. There's programs like that all across Pennsylvania. So they're good to look at and seek out because they may be potential either board members or volunteers for you. And I also know a number of you do tabling, to promote what you're doing. And if you ever need additional handouts when you're tabling, feel free to reach out to us. We've got kids bookmarks, we've got fact sheets, we've got all sorts of things that we're happy to send to groups when they're out tabling so that you have additional materials to hand out. So any other thoughts as it relates to volunteerism before we move on to the hosting a community open house, which is another tool for volunteerism?
I just wanted to mention, Rosemary was saying that they don't have their Google set up at the moment for volunteer sign up. Another freebie out there is Sign Up Genius, super easy to use. That's certainly something that could be utilized before she has all her Google stuff set up.
Right, thank you.
So the leadership directory was downloading instead of just coming up to the screen. So because it's kind of an intense spreadsheet, but you can see there's Leadership Carbon, Leadership Harrisburg, Leadership Lancaster, and all the contacts. Things change, so it might be that Debbie Hayes is no longer in charge of the Central Bucks Chamber of Commerce, but hopefully that plants a seed at least as to where you might go to find potential board members and people who are really required to do leadership training.
So Pam, can you show one more thing? They on the events page of PPFF, there is the opportunity that if you're having a volunteer event that people can sign up through that. And, particularly when we're doing the Healthy Lands Week, we had set that up because there is a built-in liability form. So as Pam brings that up here.
The problem is I have to go back to previous events, things that are over. Not all events have a sign up associated with them. So
well, why don't I talk about the community open house, and then while I talk, you can find. How's that? So community open house. Has anybody done a community open house at your park or your forest? So we did these a few years ago. We were working on a project in Ligonier Borough out in Western Pennsylvania to connect Ligonier as a gateway to the parks and the forests that are on the outskirts of Ligonier. And one of the things that our research was finding was that there were some misperceptions. The people that lived in the local community thought that if they weren't camping, they weren't, able to participate in some of the programs. They were familiar with the park, but they were familiar with where they went all the time. They didn't know. And they also, the business leaders didn't necessarily know a lot about the park. So we did a 2-day community open house. The first day we partnered with the Chamber of Commerce and we held a hot chocolate and s'mores event where we brought members of the chamber out to the park. This was Lynn Run State Park. And we showed them the park and talked about, the opportunities to connect the park to their businesses and why the park was so important to the businesses. The following day, we had a community open house where we brought people into the park and we showed them different aspects of the park. So it was helpful in that people, as I said, had these misperceptions. So we put together a couple of fact sheets that if you're thinking about, how can we get the people near us involved, inviting them in and having an informational day about the park, the opportunities, what it is that you do, here's the gate. This is the, there's a little food, a little hike, a little learning. Here at Lynn Run, there was a waterfall early on, Adams Fall. You can see it up to the upper left. Most people had never gone beyond Adams Fall. They didn't know about the park office. But you can see that road is long and it goes all the way up. It's a very linear park. They didn't know about all the other opportunities in the park. They didn't know about the volunteer opportunities there either. So it's up there, yeah. So we put together, yes, Scott, we can send a link, Scott, and all of this is on the resources page. So we put together, Pam, can you click on the fact sheet portion of it? Or I can share, because I think I have it open. Maybe not, I have so many things open. It's typical as Marcy. I use my screen, never mind. So my screen just went really weird. Stop share. Wait, I'll get this. Here we go. It's up here. So here it is. That's the press release. So there's a sample press release. Nope, they're not coming up. There was too many open. There it is. So here's the step-by-step on hosting a community open house. What is a community open house? Why would you want to do one? Steps to planning, things that you can do at them. But we found it was a very good way to connect the people, help them to understand the opportunities at the park, and to help them to connect to the park in a more meaningful way. So all of those resources are on the website. Pam, did you find an event?
Yeah, here's the yeah, now I lost it again. Like you said, too many things open.
You lose it. We're the queen of tabs.
I'll tell you what. So this was take a ride on the Great Allegheny Passage with my husband and me. So this is just this is an event from the PPF events page, and then you get your sign up, and then I can generate an Excel spreadsheet of all the people who've signed up for you. So, and there's your liability waiver and all those goodies. So anytime you want to use it, just let me know and we'll make it happen.
I think one of the biggest misconceptions for the public in general about parks is that since their taxes are paying for it, that we have plenty of money and they shouldn't have to give more. And so kind of getting across the fact that there's very little money left over for any kind of projects. We did get enough money to we're helping to fix that bank barns. That was about a 10 grand bill. But that's, going to deplete us quite a bit. Just getting people to understand that. And we've been pushing out some letters to area neighbors, trying to be more forward with that kind of thing. We haven't seen a huge increase, but it does at least get out. And then you said about putting on your Facebook page, like, hey, thank you for your donations. We were able to do this big project, and hoping that, kind of continues. But yeah, they have this conception that there's plenty of money coming from their taxes. So why do they need to put even more in? So not sure how to get away from that idea.
I see it, Jonathan. We've been doing a really good job of educating people on that. And I put a URL in the website, in the chat box. We have another website. It's called protectourparksandforests.org, and it's all about messaging on the $1.4 billion worth of infrastructure needs. Jonathan.
So when we do events, one of my wife's favorite comments to make is, we are the booster club for the park. And that seems to resonate with our constituents, and they understand that, and we explain that all the money that they're putting in the drop thing, donation bucket, is staying right here, and we're doing work with it. So that little phrase is good for us.
Yeah. That's a very good one, Jonathan, because people understand. I mean, the schools need money, libraries need money. There are a lot of public facilities that need additional funding. And I think when you can assure somebody that the money is staying there, which you can do, that sways people in an incredible way. So
I was hoping to win the big 1 point whatever billion lottery, so I could just build Nolde the educational pavilion we really need, and it didn't happen. I won $4.
Yeah, you buy another ticket.
Well, be able to get a screw for that.
What's that?
Said she might be able to get a screw for that $4.
She might. So I wanted to talk quickly about the Old Growth Forest Network, because I know some of you have heard about this, because some of you have an Old Growth Forest Network site in your park, Cook Forest being one of them. Is anybody familiar with, other than Cook Forest, with the Old Growth Forest Network?
I think there's one in Michelle.
There might be. There's one in
Roy keeps us on up on that a good bit. That's one of the things when we have our board meetings, the forestry departments asked to join. So we usually have 1 or 2 members from the show that come to our board meetings. That way we communicate, find out what they need, they find out what we can do or need from them. So we got a pretty good rapport as far as that goes. Like I said, we are growing, and what we have found a lot is finding what the volunteers want to do, because some people like groups and some don't. So you got the people who go out there and no work doing the trail because there's going to be, 40 or 50 people there, and other people that help with habitat boxes and stuff like that because they like working with a group of 3 or 4. So it's finding something for everybody's little niche.
That's a key point, Don. You gotta know what the volunteers want. So I'm going to jump over to the Old Growth Forest Network. The Old Growth Forest Network is a nonprofit that is trying to identify and certify an old growth forest in every county of the United States. And they are, as you can see, they're working predominantly in the East and in the West. What they're considering old growth is old growth or mature second growth forest that allows public access and is protected from commercial logging and timber harvesting. Their thought process is, I'm sorry?
If we're on the website, does that mean we're part of it? Because I just looked it up and Noldy's there.
Yep, then it must mean that must mean they dedicated.
Oh, good.
So
okay.
What they're trying to do is to identify in Pennsylvania a place in every county. And once it's identified, they have county coordinators. And once they identify a place, they work with the county coordinator to host a big event and bring awareness about that old growth forest. So here in Pennsylvania, you can see that there are a number of counties that have nominated forests without a common county coordinator. There are a number of forests with that haven't have any nominations and don't have a coordinator. And there are several upcoming recognition ceremonies that are happening. And then you can see where there's a dedicated forest. So Berks, yes. Cumberland upcoming recognition ceremony. It might be your Michaud one there. But they are looking for people in these counties, county coordinators. These counties have a nomination form. And in these counties, they're looking for somebody to coordinate and have a nomination form and get a nomination. So if you know of anybody that's interested, because this is a great way to bring some other value into your park, if your park is recognized as one. Brian Kane is the person, and I'll put his email in the chat box, who's coordinating here in Pennsylvania. So here's Cook Forest, Otter Creek Nature Preserve. So they're not always in a state park or a state forest. There's Hemlock Natural Area in Perry County. So an old growth forest, a lot of the hemlocks have succumbed to hemlock woolly adelgid. Slidell Middlesworth Natural Area. Ionesta. So, but I wanted to share that with you because it's a way, if your park is included in that, there's a big ceremony, there's an opportunity to be involved in the ceremony, and you can utilize that as something that, you could showcase as part of the work that you're doing. So I put Brian's name in there. If you live in a county where they're looking for people, feel free to reach out to him. If you know somebody in one of those counties, share his information. All right, anything to wrap up volunteerism?
You had mentioned the graphic about what volunteering does for me, so I put a link to that graphic in the chat box in case somebody wants to share that on their social media and encourage volunteerism.
And you changed it to a JPEG?
It is a JPEG.
Awesome. See, we learn quickly.
Hey, Marcy,
share it quickly so you can see it.
One thing I'd like to mention about volunteerism, if I can, quick.
Sure.
Is I haven't heard anybody else mention it. Is doing like community outreach events. You know, Lewisburg has multiple festivals a year. This year, I've probably reached over 2,000 people. And like this past fall, we had somebody show up to a volunteer day. They had talked to me 2 years ago at an outreach event, and they finally got a chance to come out. And so I just thought that was incredible. Like 2 years had gone by, and her and her daughter came out, decided to come out, finally and help out at the park. And so like that is a great way to reach people. Like, I usually bring like reptiles or amphibians, but you could easily grab something from your park's learning center, a pellet or something like that, and people will be able to check that out. It's a great way to educate people about the park and the environment and how they can support the friends groups.
Yeah, very, very good point, Kyle. And there are a lot of opportunities at events or like the service organization, Circuit, Rotary, Kiwanis, Sertoma. They're always looking for speakers. And when we go out, we do a thing called Things to Do Near. The front are activities you can do in a state park or a state forest. The back are the friends groups that are close to wherever we are, where you can volunteer. So we're promoting volunteer opportunities with you when we go out. So look for those events, just like you're inviting people out to your events to table with their nonprofit, think about doing the same at other events.
I think in addition to that too, you don't know who they're communicating with either. I was just at a career day on Thursday, and I want to say one of the conservatories that was local had Friends of Michaud brochures on their table as a resource as well. So never doubt planting the seed.
Sounds so forest and park appropriate, planting a seed. So we're gonna. I'm sorry, Don.
So we collect them too.
Yes, seeds are great. So we're gonna try to do something here. We want to break out, before lunch, and is to have a couple of conversations, and we know that there's some need for conversation as it relates to retail spaces, volunteers. We also wanted people to have an opportunity to have a conversation with Bernadette from a financial perspective. She has joined us. Wave, Bernadette. She's joining us from her home. Hi, Bernadette. So Pam, how do you want to try to split them into breakout rooms? Will you're muted. We can't hear what you're saying.
I will make 2 breakouts. You will see them appear magically.
So what we're gonna do, and feel free to like stand up and stretch or whatever. If you wanna talk about retail space as a volunteer, if you're doing retail, you can pop into the room with Pam.
Just hang in there. Just give me a second to type.
Well, I am talking while you do it.
But you will see that we have 2 rooms. One says retail, one says Bernadette.
So you can self-select as to where you want to go. So you can go in and chat with Bernadette about any questions you have relating to finances, or you can go into retail and talk about, you see it down at the bottom, breakout rooms. Got to click on the little bars at the bottom that say breakout, and then you can join. It'll pop up as retail or Bernadette.
And I'll be into retail in a minute when you're all.
And what's retail? What does retail mean?
Retail spaces in your park.
Oh, okay. We don't have.
I don't want to get involved in that. I don't blame you. And
if you just want to hang out and talk with me, Deb, you can just stay here, I guess.
My join breakout just disappeared.
Yep. There you go.
Okay. Everybody where they want to be. All right, I'm going to go and join retail. Fine. Do you want me to turn off the recording while you're here, Marcy?
Sure. You can turn it off.